am just realizing that I need to hit record. So that first part we missed. But Melissa has 20 plus years of working experience as a CTRS in various settings, including mental health, brain injury, physical medicine and rehab, and long-term care in clinical, residential, and community settings. She is a trained sports support group facilitator and former program specialist for the Alzheimer's Association's Long Island chapter. Melissa is the owner of Caregiving Solutions Incorporated, where she mostly works with individuals who have Alzheimer's disease and other related dementias. She enjoys combining her skills and experiences to bring her clients person-centered, evidence-based, in-home recreation therapy services. So without further ado, I would like to welcome all of you to this presentation and your speaker for today, Melissa Gallagher-Cashman. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. And thank you everyone who is attending. I cannot see all of you, but I know there's a bunch of you out there. Thank you for joining me live tonight on a Tuesday night at 7:30. And thank you to everybody on the NYSTRA board and anybody who helped put this conference together, because I know it's a lot of work and you all have jobs too. So, so with that, I will get started. Jasmine kind of told you a little bit about myself. I love being a CTRS, and like everybody else, this year has had its challenges for me, trying to recreate my business and figure how I go forward. But, you know, I was able to find a way, and I know some people have been doing telehealth, so that has been helping me a lot. But needless to say, it's been challenging, and I have actually kept in contact with a lot of people. I know a lot of people from NYSTRA. I don't live in New York anymore, so if that tells you about the people associated with NYSTRA, I've known many of them for many, many years, and I pretty much have attended mostly every conference since I graduated in 2001. So I'm very happy to be here. So we're going to start. When I first thought about presenting for the conference, obviously this is before we had the pandemic and the conference actually got canceled. My vision for these two sessions was different than how it came out, obviously. So tonight will be there'll be some interaction, and we'll be talking about lots of different things. Tomorrow will be a lot more fun. We'll actually I'll be showing you some things. My hope for this was originally to have people working in groups and things like that, but obviously we can't do that. And I also wanted to do my own study in a place somewhere around here where I live. I live in South Carolina, believe it or not, but that was just not possible because of everything going on. So, you know, possibly maybe I might expand on this and do part 2 next year. But anyway, these are the learning outcomes for the session. I won't read all of them just to save time, but basically be able to identify 2 different types of puzzles. I think we all know different types of puzzles that are out there, but I think when we hear puzzles, we don't always think about all the different types. So we will talk about that, not just jigsaw puzzles. To be able to demonstrate knowledge of the benefits and outcomes, we know that people enjoy them, we know that they're good, but really why? And I think one of the common things I'm hearing from the sessions that I have attended so far is that we want to, you know, do evidence-based programs because we want to justify what we do, obviously, but it makes it easier for us. It makes it easier for us to write goals. We know what the outcomes will be. And for me, you know, I work with families mostly. So they don't really understand the TR process, but they need to understand, you know, why are you doing that? So for me to be able to give them intelligent answers on why helps me too. And like I said, we will not be having a group experiential. We'll do the best we can with that. And I'll be giving you lots of resources. Some you may know of, some may be new to you. And then these are just my own personal goals for everybody attending, just to help you realize how many programs you already do that include some type of puzzle, and how you can maybe tweak some of them to be a little bit more individualized and more successful, and to not just be able to modify or adapt a puzzle, but to understand exactly why. What are all the different things going on? And most importantly, the last one, to remember that each person with dementia is unique, and so are their individual goals and needs, okay? And we're always focusing on people's strengths. To be able to say with conviction that puzzles are an effective therapeutic recreation intervention based on education principles and evidence-based research. So I did steal this, obviously, and I won't go through all of them, but I'm sure that we are all familiar with all of the reasons why we want to do evidence-based programming. I mentioned a few a couple of minutes ago, but you know, it makes documentation a lot easier. It focuses obviously on the client's needs and are more purposeful. It gives us predictable outcomes. I am a CTRS. I do have some certifications. The reason I got those is because it allows me to do a little bit more, you know, within the scope of practice, but I also, liability-wise, I work for myself. So I don't have a place covering me, so to speak. So if I'm working with somebody and they want to, you know, strengthen their legs, probably puzzle is not going to be something that we're doing. But if they are working on their upper body, as you'll hear, there are some things that puzzles can do to help them. So simply, what is a puzzle? And this is really just right out of the dictionary. Puzzle is a game, problem, or toy that tests a person's ingenuity or knowledge. The solver is expected to put pieces together in a logical way in order to arrive at the correct or fun solution of the puzzle. Puzzles are dated back to 1814, just a little bit of, you know, history. A toy known as a reel in a bottle, which if you think about those ships in a bottle, kind of the same concept. So, you know, this is kind of how a lot of it started. I don't really understand exactly the concept of this. I believe they had a reel, a collapsible reel. They put some silk around it. They put it in the bottle, it expanded. And I guess the puzzle was to try to remove it. So knowledge and ingenuity. So knowledge, that's facts and information and skills. These are all the things that we know through our experience, our education. It's the theoretical or practice understanding of a subject. Ingenuity is the quality of being clever, okay, original and inventive. So the reason why we are talking about all of this is because sometimes we look at people doing different puzzles and we wonder, well, why, you know, we know that they may have some type of dementia. Why are some able to do and some aren't? So there's different types of knowledge, and this is important to know when trying to give the correct puzzle. So factual knowledge is based on information about a particular subject. Excuse me. Conceptual knowledge, that cannot be learned by rote. It's understanding of concepts, principles, theories. It's counting, games that we learn, hobbies, knowing why you are doing something. Procedural knowledge, that's exercised in the performance of some task, routine or knowing what to do. Metacognitive knowledge, this is interesting to know, is what individuals know about themselves and others as cognitive processors, how the person learns, their strengths. So I know for me, I'm definitely a visual learner, and I'm a doer. I cannot just really read something and be able to do it. I have to do it. If you just tell me directions, I can't always figure it out, and I have to do things a couple of times. And especially if it's giving me direction somewhere, because I'm terrible at that. I am directionally challenged. So the popularity of puzzles, with the onset of the Great Depression in 1929, puzzles enjoyed a resurgence of popularity, peaking in early 1933. So we just had a time where puzzles kind of made a comeback. How many people did puzzles during quarantine? I know many people in my family did. I know I did. You know, we were all looking for things to keep us busy, then things that we could do together. So we enjoyed puzzles here. So this is just a little quick review. I'm sure that most of us know what dementia is, but you know, dementia, that is a word that kind of gets thrown around a lot, you know, like Band-Aid, you know, I need a Band-Aid, but it's really a bandage, you know, Band-Aid's the brand name. So, you know, dementia is a general term for loss of memory, language, problem solving, and other thinking abilities that are severe enough to interfere with daily life. So that's dementia. It differs from mild cognitive impairment, which you may have heard of, MCI, which actually is, it is detectable in testing, but it doesn't really interfere with the person's life. People who are diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment do not necessarily develop dementia. They are more at risk too, but that does not mean that they will. Alzheimer's disease is the most common cause of dementia. So people who have Alzheimer's disease, they have dementia from Alzheimer's disease. And dementia is not a single disease, it is an overall term like heart disease. And there are diseases that cause dementia. Alzheimer's disease is the one that we hear about the most. It accounts for 60 to 80% of cases. Then you have vascular dementia, and mixed dementia, and you've probably heard of Lewy body, frontal temporal, Parkinson's, and Huntington's. It wasn't in my introduction there, but I will share with you that in addition to working with individuals and you know, working in the community, I've been on the other side of it too. I actually lost my father to frontotemporal dementia, which is actually really what kind of pushed me into learning. I was working in long-term care at the time in 2006 when he was diagnosed. So it just kind of became my passion after that. And unfortunately, he did pass away in 2013. So I thought of how I could, you know, talk about some of the clients that I've worked with. So what I did was I chose two. And what I did was I just put some basic information. And then as we go throughout the presentation, I will kind of refer back to them so that you get an understanding of who they are. So the first client that I will speak of, her name is Ginny. And I actually have been working with her since 2018. She just celebrated her 90th birthday. She lives in her own home. She has a live-in 24/7 home health aide. And her son oversees her care, but he lives in his own home. And she worked as a reading teacher in the past. She is Greek. She enjoys Greek music. She played tennis and was very social prior to diagnosis and disease progression. So when I first met her, she was doing a lot of sitting. She was still walking with a walker with the aid. She's not doing that anymore. But I will talk about her progress and some of the puzzles that I used with her and still do with her. The second person is a gentleman named Harry. I've actually changed the names just to protect their privacy. Unfortunately, he did pass away last March. He did not pass away from COVID. He actually was diagnosed with lung cancer. So he succumbed to that first. He worked in wealth management. He was a very smart man, very successful, and worked with him for almost 2 years. He lived in a private home with a significant other, 2 children. His son was kind of responsible for everything. And we eventually had to place shifts of 24/7 home health aides. And he enjoyed music. He was an accomplished author and photographer, enjoyed cultural events, and like me, was a Yankee fan. So it was something that we connected. And his reason for referral: decline in cognition, loss of interest in leisure activities, and because of the recent introduction of the home companions. So these are the 2 people that I will speak mostly of. So some supporting research. You know, it's often difficult to find a lot of studies in recreation therapy. I mean, I do find some. This is something that I found not with rec therapists, which is why I think we really should start doing studies I really want to do my own. This is a study that talks about cognitive stimulation therapy. So it's kind of like word games and puzzles got kind of, lumped in there. But basically, participants receiving cognitive stimulation therapy exhibited improved cognitive function, quality of life, and well-being immediately when comparing those receiving usual care. And in this case, they're talking about anti-dementia medications, which you've probably heard of some of them, CTRS, Namenda. Those are medications that actually kind of help the person enjoy a better quality of life. They kind of mask the symptoms, but they don't really slow down the disease progression. So basically what I just spoke of, they actually received cognitive stimulation therapy 2 times a week for 45 minutes over 7 weeks. And in 7 weeks, they showed improvement. Another study, and I'm just going to go through these briefly because it is a little boring, but I did find quite a few studies that kind of support. This one was information that was presented to the Alzheimer's Association International Conference, which they have every year. And these people, it was kind of like an online study, and these people self-reported a lot of their results, but the overall findings were linked that types of puzzles, doing puzzles were linked to a sharper brain in later life. And this study I thought was interesting. It talked about the effectiveness of puzzle therapy, so it was specific, on cognitive functions among elderly with dementia. And this study took place at, this place is obviously, it's in Indonesia, but it was like a social services type of place where I would imagine that participants would go and take part in, activities, and then there were staff that would educate, the individuals, families, and they did 2 groups, an intervention group and another group that did not receive puzzle therapy 3 times a week for 1 month. There was, excuse me, a significant increase in the value of cognition among the intervention group after puzzle therapy. When comparing the 2 groups, the intervention showed more of an increase in cognition in the post-test. So again, they're saying that after puzzle therapy, people are showing increased cognition. Now, I have a video for you, and Jasmine and I tested this out before. So I'm actually going to plug in a speaker so that you can hear it. And just to introduce the video, it's you might have seen this on the news. I just was very inspired by this young girl who just kind of took an idea and ran with it. So I thought it was appropriate to show just so you could see, this young girl working with people and using jigsaw puzzles.
And hopefully everyone can
Now
hear
do
it.
a story about a true hidden hero. A 12-year-old girl who started out just wanting to help her grandparents live with Alzheimer's.
And I see some
turned
positives,
into a
yes.
worldwide business with the sole purpose of helping other kids do the same. Here's Rob Nelson.
I love you very much.
I love you.
I haven't been good to you because I haven't been well.
12-year-old Haley Richmond knows her grandmother is battling Alzheimer's, and she knows it is a terrible disease. But this remarkable young lady from Long Island City also knows she can help ease the rough road ahead.
I learned that since there is no cure, there is no way for my grandma to functionally live with it forever, which made me really sad.
Because her grandfather died from Alzheimer's years ago, this 6th grader was already aware of the benefits of jigsaw puzzles, how they can help keep the mind active and a little sharper. She and her grandmother have done them for years together. But then Haley teamed up with the group Puzzles to Remember, started just a few years ago to donate puzzles to caregiving facilities across America and the world, 100,000 of them and counting.
I learned that you can solve puzzles and it stimulates the visual cortex, which can't cure Alzheimer's, but it can help it and it can calm the person down who has it.
Haley is now the associate director of the group, responsible just herself for the distribution of 35,000 puzzles. She has also launched www.kidcaregivers.com, a resource for young people just like her, helping loved ones through Alzheimer's. And she didn't stop there. She also created an international program called Puzzle Time that connects Alzheimer's patients and young volunteers for beneficial time together on this day at a facility in Forest Hills.
I want all kids to know that even don't think just because you're a kid you can't make a difference.
Haley has racked up multiple awards, some national, for her amazing efforts, and she actively supports the Cure Alzheimer's Fund, which raises millions for research. She is compassionate, mature, and driven with dreams of a cure and of becoming a doctor. But Haley is something even more precious, a loving granddaughter. Rob Nelson, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
There are some comments in chat, Melissa. One from Kathy Davis. She recruited her friends to come to the nursing home and started the puzzle group at her grandma's nursing home. And this is from Lynn, great kid. Wow, so just wanted to share that.
Yeah, she's just, I mean, this little girl just really inspired me. I really would like to meet her. In fact, I had hoped to try to find her, but then, you know, a lot of things happened. But, you know, I showed this for a lot of reasons. Number one, I mean, she's just an inspiration. And if you do this, you work in this environment, you know, you really understand that. And I think it's great because, you know, it's kind of promoting it, but I also wanted to kind of take a step back too. And as we go further, you know, we are the therapists. We are the people that make sure that, you know, that the right puzzles, you know what I'm saying? It, like, that's part of it too. So I thought this was a good thing to show. And, you know, she's also says she wants to be a doctor. She's who we need to talk to so we can do these studies, right? So I hope you enjoyed that. So moving right along. So the benefits of puzzles for individuals with dementia. So one of the biggest things, we know they reawaken memories, okay? And I started with these two. I'll be giving you things throughout. I'll leave it up there so you can copy it down. These are two websites that I came across. I'm actually in the process of using one of them. What they do is they will take a photo or a picture of some sort, and they will create a custom puzzle for you. So the one thing that I do like, I think it's the second one because the top one says 48 pieces minimum, I think. One of them will actually do a puzzle in like 4 pieces if you want, or 6 pieces or 8 pieces. So you can really, you know, really individualize it to the person that you're working with. You could, I'll show you a couple, you know, of puzzles, you know, like, I don't know if people are familiar with these. Have you seen these? Mind Start, and I'll give you the website later. The thing is, the pictures on the puzzle is something that can reawaken memories. If you use an individual photo, it could be maybe the person's wedding photo, or it could be, you know, a photo of one of their kids or such, even their dog. You know, you want something that's going to, you know, kind of hook the person in and stimulate memories. So just an example, vegetables, maybe somebody likes cars. And these all come in different, you know, 24 pieces, 12 pieces. And again, as we talk actually tomorrow in tomorrow's part, when we talk about assessing and finding the right puzzle, it's not always the number of pieces, it's also the picture too. You know, you could have a puzzle that only has 12, and if the picture is very complicated for the person, then that might not work. Let's set these down. And then I have one more here. This is actually a 30-piece puzzle, but it has a cool picture of a diner. You know, one point I do want to make, well, I don't forget to say it, as I was watching, it was Robin and Susan doing Farm It Out to Facebook. And I think Susan was sharing about how, you know, things are changing. Like the people that we're serving now, you know, we'll be doing more music of the 60s, you know, and as we go forward. So, you know, this type of thing, you know, will only last for so long. Everything changes. Okay, let's move along. Some more puzzles. Okay, baseball, perhaps someone who did gardening, playing the piano. Okay, so some more benefits of puzzles. They provide the person with a sense of control. And, you know, why is this important for people with dementia? Because They are losing control of many different things. They are losing independence. They are hopefully living a great quality of life because of all the great things we're doing. But for that person, it's difficult. And I'll tell you this, I had never really worked with people in real early stage, aside from, you know, I worked in a nursing home for quite a few years. And, you know, you would have people that lived in, you know, the regular part, and they perhaps had some dementia going on. But I never had really had the opportunity to talk with people who were just diagnosed. And that's a very humbling experience. So when I worked for the association, I did a lot of different groups in the community where, you know, I created programs so that people could come, you know, with their spouse or another caregiver, and, you know, talking with them, they're people, you know, they still want to do the same things. They didn't want to think about the terrible things. They want to enjoy life. So when focusing on solving a puzzle, we're temporarily grounded, and it provides a sense of control, which helps us relax. And the cool thing about puzzles is that they use both sides of your brain simultaneously. So the left side is responsible for organizing things and utilizing logic. Your right side is handling creativity. Doing puzzles actually increases the production of dopamine. We all know what dopamine is. It's that feel-good neurotransmitter in our brain. Your body makes it, and your nervous system uses it to send messages between the nerve cells. Increased dopamine levels regulate our mood and optimism, which in turn affects our learning, our concentration, and our motivation. So you know that when you're doing a program with your clients, I will call them clients, could be residents, patients. Doing a music intervention often is what I start my session out with, because it just gets the person in a good zone. They're feeling good, and they actually will be more open to a cognitive intervention. A little bit of research. Human Brain Mapping in 2018 conducted a study, and what they did was they studied to actually see in the brain how dopamine is released during that, like, aha, you know, when you're successful at something. So they involved 30 volunteers, and they were asked to solve difficult word puzzles. So for example, this could be one of the puzzles. They had to find a word that you could associate with house, bark, and apple. So the answer is tree, right? A tree house, tree bark, apple tree. So let's try this one. See if you can find a word associated with stick, reading, and service. Go. Actually had some I had some little Jeopardy music. All right. Anybody get the answer?
That was hard. I want to say dog, but I don't know if it's the reading, because the stick and the service dog.
I didn't get it, so don't feel bad, okay? They must have had some either very, very, very intelligent people doing this experiment, or maybe they're just showing the two most difficult questions, okay? So don't feel bad. I did not get the answer. Okay, you ready for the answer? The answer is lip. Okay, so I think that's a little tricky though, because lipstick is kind of one word, so I'm not really sure about that. But lipstick, lip reading, lip service, so that's the answer. But anyway, they used MRI, which measures the small changes in blood flow that occur within brain activity. So when people, you know, got the answer right, or they were confident in their answer, they saw a change in their brain activity. So that moment showed a release of dopamine. So when doing jigsaw puzzles, every time you fit a piece correctly, dopamine is released. Every time you complete the whole puzzle, like that's such a great feeling if you do puzzles, dopamine is released. So the thing is, we want to make sure that we are giving people the right puzzle, whether it's a jigsaw puzzle or doing a word puzzle, because we want people to look like this. We want them to be happy. We don't want them to look like this. Looks like he's having some problems. So more benefits of puzzles. They have been shown to reduce cognitive decline. So studies have shown people who do puzzles perform better on tests related to memory than those who do not. And in this article, they talked about how puzzles stimulate both your short-term and long-term memory. So your short-term memory is necessary as you're finding a location to fit that piece. Or if you're doing, I watch Wheel of Fortune, I like that. I like word puzzles. So, you know, as you're searching and you're trying to figure things out, your long-term memory is trying to remember how to recognize and match colors, patterns, and shapes. Or in that case, remembering, you know, you have to remember what letters are up there. You know, you think you have the answer, but the letter T is already up there or it's not in the puzzle. So your short-term and long-term memory are making new connections to bypass damaged brain areas. So again, people who have dementia from a disease that progresses, those parts of their brain, they're losing parts of their brain every day, where with a brain injury, it's a little bit different. It's kind of static. Whatever damage has occurred, that's kind of how it stays. Another study, I'm just going to kind of skip over this. Okay. Again, another study talking about, I'll go to the end here. This is talking about visuospatial cognition. Okay, so that's another thing. In fact, that young girl even talked about how it affects visual cortex, I think was the word she used. But basically, we forget that when people are doing puzzles, specifically jigsaw puzzles or any of those types of puzzles, they are working on those skills, which are very important. They're important for all of us, but they are very important for people who have dementia, because they are losing certain things. So whatever they do still have, we want to maintain. And people need to be aware of their environment. They need to be able to navigate where they are. And this is not always easy when you're losing skills that you had your entire life. The thing about this study that I found interesting, they did find that jigsaw puzzle intervention was not a quick fix. So in 30 days, you know, there weren't really significant results with these two groups of people, but they did find that it's an intervention that may be a potential protective factor for cognitive aging. And as far as the quick fix, I can speak of the gentleman that I mentioned earlier. We started doing puzzles, and I say we because his family, you know, and the people that I worked with, the different companions, you know, teaching them how to do things. He never did puzzles before in his life. He was a numbers guy. He never really sat down and did jigsaw puzzles. And I'm not even going to tell you some of the nice words that he told me when we first started doing them. You know, there was a lot of F-bombs going on. But the cool thing is, as he got into it and realized that he was good at it, he actually got better. He started with 12 pieces, and then that became too easy. And then he went to like 24 pieces, and he got lost in it. And it was a great activity. It was a great intervention for him, because later on we were able to see that he was able to be more aware of his environment in placing things. And a good example of that, we went to a Ducks game, the Long Island Ducks game, because he liked baseball. Going to a Yankees game would be too much. So I arranged it. We went to the Ducks game in May, and then we went to another one in August. So the first time we went, when he had his food, he had his drink and his hot dog and whatever. And, you know, he was just kind of really not aware of what was going on. You know, we had to help him get settled and everything. When we went the second time, he put his drink in the drink holder. He knew what to do. And he just became, it was kind of like watching an awakening for him. When I first met him, he really wasn't doing much of anything. We set it up that he was able to go into his office where his son had taken over pretty much the company, but he had the social part of it. He was able to see the people that worked under him and, you know, and do some of these things in his office in private. And we just had a very good system set up. So, you know, a quick fix, no, but I can say over the course of, you know, like 3 to 4 months in that time, I saw significant improvement. So visual spatial reasoning. Again, we can't just think memory decline. So, you know, I mean, years ago, I've learned so much since when I first started, you know, using puzzles with people. I think that as therapists, we can use them more as an individual intervention. We can be able to set up programs. I know I don't really do group programs anymore because it's just me, but it's very challenging, you know, to have different functioning levels of people and always trying to find the right thing. You know, doing lots of puzzles at the same time and having people doing different things, everyone's kind of doing the same thing, but working at their own level. It's not because people forget how to do the puzzle. There's a lot of other things going on. So cognitive functions like perception, attention, memory, motor skills, these are all cognitive functions, not just memory. Language, when we talk about word puzzles later on. Executive function skills that are required to plan and achieve goals. These are things that you often see people who have frontal temporal dementia when that part of their brain is being affected. Those are the types of things you see go quickly and go first. So visuospatial ability. I mean, to tell somebody, yes, this puzzle is good because it increases their visuospatial ability, right? That sounds really, really professional. So it refers to a person's capacity to identify visual and spatial relationships among objects. It's measured in terms of the ability to imagine objects, to make global shapes, to understand the differences and similarities between objects. So these are all things when doing a puzzle. Whether it's a jigsaw puzzle or some other types of puzzles I'll show you. But, you know, even in a jigsaw puzzle, you're determining, you know, the different shapes and the different colors, right? Similarities and differences. So these are examples of visuospatial skills and why they're important. So these are the types of skills you need to draw a picture, making the bed. You know, all things that, you know, people want to keep doing for themselves, right? Buttoning a shirt, putting a puzzle together, or assembling or building something. And puzzles help improve our attention to detail and improve visual perception and visual recognition. So puzzles force us to work on visual perception skills, even if we don't even realize that we're doing it. Another example, putting a key into a door lock. I mean, think about that. It's a simple thing. We do it every day when we want to get into our house. But think about what has to happen before you put that key into the door lock. Putting items away. Dancing, you know, just knowing where your body is, knowing how you're moving your arms when you're standing. Even what I do when I'm doing, you know, Chair One Fitness, and we're doing that, you know, puzzles help people to kind of be more aware of their own body and to be able to follow direction better. She's got moves and more dancing. How about locating a room? So, you know, doing puzzles and using puzzles as an intervention can actually help people with dementia because, you know, think about it. They are losing those things that can help them navigate their environment. This is important. It's independence. So there's something that cognitive ramp, you've probably heard the expression. If you haven't heard it, I'll talk in a few minutes where I actually learned the expression. But basically, a cognitive ramp can be defined as a modification of pace, complexity, or literacy level intended to bridge a gap in accessibility to information processes or environments for people with varying cognitive skills. So it's based on the model of cognitive accessibility. We always hear about accessibility. When I was going to school, and I told you I graduated in 2001, the Americans with Disabilities Act was fairly new. That was in 1990. And I do remember part of going to school, one of the classes I was taking, you had to assess a public building for accessibility. And, you know, when you look at things in the environment, and I notice them more because this is what I do, you know, how many things in the person's environment, even in the community. Again, I do work with people who live in the community. When you go into a restaurant, is it accessible? First of all, is it accessible? Are the bathrooms, you know, do they have a family restroom? But what about when you get in that restroom? And I'll show you some pictures. You know, are things easy to read? Do people in a restaurant, if they are serving someone who has dementia, are they aware of the fact that some people may take longer to place their order? So all of these types of things, when people move into a nursing home or an assisted living, they encourage people to have some of their own furniture or a favorite chair, things that will make the environment more familiar. So I don't know if any of you have heard of Montessori-based dementia programming. I actually heard of this, I don't remember how many years ago, but it was actually at one of the NYSTRA conferences, and I don't remember who they were, but they did a phenomenal job. It was a presentation that I went to. It was 2 parts, and they talked about this Montessori-based dementia programming. And so psychologist Cameron Camp took the teaching method traditionally used on young children and retooled it to help people with Alzheimer's disease and other related dementias regain some of the skills that have fallen prey to their illness. So I like this because, you know, I look at a lot of things based on a rehabilitation process. You know, that's what we do as you know, CTRS, as therapists. So since being trained as a personal trainer, I kind of have opened my mind a lot more to that too, because, you know, obviously we want to find interventions and things that people enjoy, but we also want to keep people functioning who have dementia. We want to keep the person functioning so that they can stay independent and enjoy their quality of life. So he created the Montessori-based dementia care programming method, and they actually do offer a class. Again, I don't get paid to advertise for this. You know, I'm just mentioning it to you because I found it to be very helpful. I took the certification, and you actually get six, I think it is 6 CEUs if you take it. So it's, you know, it's recognized for that. And for me, it just kind of, it just kind of bridged a gap to some of the things. You know, you get used to thinking a certain way, and when you look at things a different way, and it still stays within scope of practice. So it's not like they're teaching anything that I wouldn't do. Just a little bit about them. Like an activity that they would have somebody do is, and again, we're going to talk about a lot of different things from various functioning levels. You know, we have to remember it does get difficult sometimes to program for people when they are more advanced. And, you know, we want to make sure that they're doing things that they enjoy, things that they can do, and things that have a purpose. We don't want to just give people things to do things, because that's not what we do. If it's something they want to do and they can choose to do that, that's a different story. That's leisure. But one thing would be to use a slotted spoon in a tub of rice and have different objects in there, and have the person kind of go in and lift it so that the rice falls through the spoon and they're actually holding a spoon. So it's also good for people to help them to maintain the ability, believe it or not, just to feed themselves. And I'll tell you, this becomes a really big issue because I have a lot of clients. That lady that I spoke of, who's 90 years old, she still can independently feed herself. But I've had families tell me that, oh, they can't do that anymore. And a lot of times it's just because they can, but they don't have the strength because they're not doing things, you know, they're not using their arms. And there are a lot of activities that I can show you when we do the puzzles to try to get a person to increase their range of motion, to increase their strength. And here's a pretty good example. Again, I look at things a lot differently too. If you take your arms, I don't know if you can see me, take your arms in front of you like you're doing like a bicep, do a bicep curl. Okay. Now, raise your hands in front of you this way. Okay. It's different, right? You feel different muscles working. You might even feel it in your core a little bit. So there's different movements. And if we can give people different ways to move while doing puzzles, which I'll show you, that helps. Also, they use certain language like would you like to instead of can you. And this is important. A person with dementia can learn new procedures. Procedural learning and memory remains intact. Procedural learning, as opposed to, we'll learn later on, declarative learning. So when somebody says, oh, they have Alzheimer's and they don't have any short-term memory, they can't learn that. Well, it depends on what it is that the procedure that you want them to learn. So procedural memory refers to our knowledge of skills and how to perform tasks. And it's something we mostly remember automatically. We just kind of do it. We just go through the motions. Multiple parts of the brain are involved in the formation of procedural memories. So throwing a ball or driving a car, you know, things you just do. You don't really think about it. And I just put a picture. I love to study the brain. I'm like a brain geek. When I worked for the association, I found that it often helped families. I think it still does. When you understand the brain, you understand dementia. If you understand the different parts of the brain and where things happen and why they're not happening, is basically what it's all about. So this is just a quick picture of that, the cerebellum. And I'm sure that everybody remembers all this from anatomy and physiology. It's fun. Declarative memories. So facts or memories or past events that can be declared rather than performed. Just a couple of examples. Okay, semantic, that's like, you know, knowing the states in the United States, what a cat looks like. Episodic, that's things that happen to you. Autobiographical, which is a combination of semantic and episodic. And then spatial, that's a route to drive home, you know, where Starbucks is, where the library is. And again, in the brain, you know what, I have all that stuff up there so I can't really see, but it just explains a little bit more about like the hippocampus, and I can't really read that up there.
I see the prefrontal cortex.
Prefrontal cortex, yeah.
Right, so yes.
Okay, so again, just a little bit of anatomy so you can understand where these things happen in the brain. So remember, declarative memory has to do with facts, events, word knowledge, vocabulary. And procedural memory is more skills and location learning, habits and categorization, conditioning, and priming. So when you look at the screen on the left, if you do this type of work every day, you know, these are all the things that you see, you know, people are starting to have difficulty with if you're working with people who have dementia. On the right-hand side, these are the things that whatever those skills are that they have, we want to maintain them. We want them to hang on to these things. And these are the things that you're going to be looking at when you're choosing puzzles, because these are all the different things that you do when you're doing puzzles. So why do I have a picture of bras and socks and underwear on the screen? So she's lost her mind. So, okay, so cognitive ramps, right? We talked about them. So, you know, these are things that, and again, I've worked in different environments, and I always try to keep remembering who I'm presenting to. You know, it's different. I think it's difficult for us sometimes. If you work with people, if you work in long-term care, it's a little bit different than working in other settings, okay? Because you're dealing with you're dealing with somebody, obviously, you're trying to use the TOR process, but they live there. A lot of them live there. So you know they're not going home, okay? So you're trying to maintain a lot of different things, but you know what? You can improve. There are things that you can improve with people, and obviously we can improve, you know, their mood, we can increase their socialization, and perhaps we can increase some of their functioning, we can make them stronger, you know, those types of things. But if we want people to be able to remain independent, using cognitive ramps, and the reason I put these pictures is because you can make a puzzle, and we'll talk about like matching. Matching is a puzzle. Using these things as the pictures that you're matching, or using, you know, things that make sense to a person every day, in addition to, you know, fuzzy kittens and all those other things that people like. But putting a picture of, you know, socks on someone's, you know, dresser drawer so that they know that's where the socks go, and they can then put them away. It's just something that makes it easier. And again, activities of daily living, you know, these are some of the things that you can use in your puzzles. And then I'm showing you this. So the reason I'm showing you this is my remote, okay? When we first moved here, I had 2 remotes here, and I couldn't figure out the TV because, again, I'm not like tech, I'm not tech savvy. And, you know, I had trouble reading some of the buttons. So, you know, this is what I did. This is my own remote. I do not have dementia, but using a comb. So let me show you some of these things here. Helping somebody to be able to put a remote in the right place by showing, this is large just for you. I don't think I would make the picture this large, but making a template so that the person would know in that place, that's where it goes, with a little picture next to it, is one idea. The same thing with where these items are kept, you know, in the person's bathroom. And then you could take it a step further, and you could actually use, you can make templates, okay? You can make a comb, you can make a razor, very simple things. But again, these are things that if somebody's never actually done a puzzle, there's a lot of things that I will show you tomorrow that I've used to kind of like remotivate people, or to, like, if somebody is starting to have difficulty with a puzzle that they've been given, there's something else that you can give them that can maybe, you know, address the same outcome that you're trying to reach, but in a different way. Again, talking about a restroom, you know, if you work in a place where, you know, people do live there, most likely they do have their own bathroom. I don't know if they would be going into a public bathroom, but, you know, like I said, I help people in the community. So this is often what you see. And if you think about it, you know, we know that, okay, employees must wash hands before returning to work. Well, we don't work there. We know that. It's confusing, right? I don't work here, you know, or even somebody who wants to wash their hands. I don't know about you, but I don't really have that soap dispenser in my bathroom. And, you know, you probably have a little soap pun and maybe a towel, which would be gross in a public bathroom, but just maybe something, you know, soap, or, you know, dry hands here, things like that to make it easier for somebody. And it's very white, so it's not really easy to see. An example too, when we're doing puzzles and interventions, I could only find this. I should have made my own sign, but just so you get the idea, please arrange the flowers. So, you know, when you're working with somebody and you're explaining the puzzle, it always does help to have, I always have like something written too, you know, please arrange the pieces, or please match these. It's just another way to just make it a little bit easier for people. Especially if they are starting to have difficulty processing receptive aphasia. I couldn't think of the word. So simple word, direction, and picture. Again, you know, finding things. Using the color red. They talk about the color red It's just some more signs. Apparently the color red increases brainwave activity. It seems to decrease the size of a room. And it offers good contrast with food and stimulates the appetite. You may have heard this, you know, if you work in long-term care. It's supposed to help people be able to better see, you know, the plate in front of them. Again, for people who are further along and have progressed, they often can be confused just sitting down to a meal, you know, where the cup goes, where the knife and fork, where their plate is. These types of things help them. And the Equality Act of 2010, which I actually did not know about this, but that's where they have stated that a physical or mental impairment that has a substantial and long-term negative effect on a person's ability to do normal daily activities. So, you know, if someone has Alzheimer's disease, they are considered to have a disability. And, you know, looking at it as a disability, I think helps us to kind of focus more on all these things that I've just talked about. They have a disease, but they have dementia is the disability. And that's what we're trying to find interventions for. So a couple more benefits from puzzles. They encourage quiet meditation and they increase attention to task. So when assembling puzzles, our brains go from the beta or awake to a state of alpha, which is a state similar to the state we are in when dreaming. So I talked of my client Harry there, who got in the zone. I mean, you couldn't interrupt him. Once he started, he wanted to finish it, and his attention to task just increased immensely, which was great because then it helps you do other things. You know, it helps you to do other interventions. You have the person's attention; they can sit and do things. They improve short-term memory by reinforcing connections between the brain cells and improving mental speed. They help improve problem-solving skills, right? When you're solving a puzzle, it shows us how to make predictions, test options. You're trying to fit pieces together. You're trying to, you know, figure out what that word is if you're doing a word puzzle. And this helps us to be more innovative and adaptive. Okay. That's the one thing that I always like to kind of focus on. You know, people with dementia, they may be losing their memory, their short-term memory may be going, but they don't lose their problem-solving skills, not all. And some of them do stay intact, so puzzles can really help that. And finally, they provide a sense of accomplishment. So many individuals with dementia need help with almost everything, and they don't get to accomplish many things on their own. So, you know, for yourself, you know, when you finally, if you do puzzles and you do large number puzzles and you finally complete it, it's a great sense of accomplishment, right? Putting that last piece in. And it increases social interactions. So, you know, for us, for ourselves, and for our clients. And they did a study at Yale University, and they found that workers who puzzled together in the workplace improved their relationships and the ability to cooperate and work as a team. Okay, this is a picture of them. It's a pretty large puzzle. Putting that last piece. So what ideas do you have to bring to your workplace? Maybe you could start something, you know. Like I said, I've been away from, you know, from working in long-term care in a place. And I know that for me, I always tried to find things that, you know, that everybody could kind of find in common that would help people bite into what I was trying to do. And, you know, this is just a really great example, you know, and I used a lot of volunteers, you know, where I worked. I use them now. You know, volunteers are great, you know, to do that one-on-one. And if you have assessed it and you know that it's the right intervention, and then someone can do it with the person and you can do something else, even better. So they're a great independent activity or with a loved one. And that, I can't believe we ended early. which is good because now we can talk. Anything?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Hi, this is wonderful. Back to that Yale study,
Yeah, you want me to go back?
I want to write it down because.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's just Yale study. I think you said in 2017. I was just wondering where.
It was 2017. Yep.
I do like research.
Keep going back. Hold on.
Sorry.
Yeah, here it is.
So I can look up this Rowena. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. And I'm glad that you mentioned the last piece was the, you know, where people have success or they feel like they accomplished it. So my personal story was actually I work with my sister has developmental disabilities, but she's also aging. And so puzzles is great to do. With her, she likes the matching now because of her cognitive issues that she's had for a long time, and she's also deaf. So it's just something a lot of people can do with her, the matching. And people are like, oh, wow, we didn't know she was so smart. I was like, yeah, because she'll remember. And it's such success to her that she can beat so many people with the matching games. So it's success. And then my other story is just my mother-in-law who's diagnosed with moderate range of dementia right now. And we went down to see her not long ago, who's in North Carolina. And she completed this puzzle. She was never a puzzle person. But a neighbor gave her a puzzle and she just was like telling her grandkids, please go on the dining room table and look at this puzzle I finished. It's a big, it was a beautiful floral, so age appropriate too. So many times you see them with, you know, ducks and rabbits. And it's like, I'm always on the search for age appropriate puzzles for adults, but the scenery of it was just so pretty. And, but she was so mad because her neighbor gave it to her and there's one piece missing. So she's perseverating on this one piece, and it was she's like, the neighbor brought it. She found the piece. Somehow it fell out of the box. She found it. I'm
like,
wow.
Yeah, that would drive me crazy.
Life is good again. I was like, life is good again. You found the puzzle piece. But it really is when she's having a decline in so many areas now. We're thinking of moving her north. Is that, you know, she has something to talk about where she was successful. So I think that's really important that you did say that. You know,
absolutely.
Accomplishment. Yeah.
Well, we all want to feel successful. I mean, you know, we're all people, we're all humans. We all want to feel good about ourselves, you know, and that goes for anybody really. And it's true. You just realize, and you know, sometimes I feel very grateful that I have the opportunity to work one-on-one with people. It's why I created my company. It's what I wanted to do when I left that world. And I do miss, you know, I miss that part of it. I miss groups, but you know, because I'm working so closely with people, I have learned so much. And I think, gee, gosh, I wish I had known this back then, because we tend to get in that mode like, you know, oh yeah, they probably can't do it. Well, why don't you try? I mean, there's nothing wrong with trying something. And I've gotten really good at, you know, sneaking things in, because again, you don't want to frustrate people, and you don't want it to tank before you even give it a chance. Right. So, you know, what we'll talk about tomorrow, I have my whole house here. I mean, you're just going to see everything, all these different things that I do. And then I have to clean it up after. But, you know, these are things that I've done and, you know, I'm excited about because I know they work. And I've fallen into that too. You know, oh, I don't think they can do that. But how can somebody, you know, not be able to have a conversation? But yeah, they can match things because some of the things are already talked about. It's the brain. There's even language. When we talk about language tomorrow, you're going to be really surprised because, you know, I used to believe there was really just this one part, because I know that my own father had frontotemporal dementia and he lost his ability to speak very early on. In fact, he was nonverbal for 4 years and we communicated. I mean, he and I communicated, but he did not speak, but he could do other things. And he could, you know, you'll see that people who aren't speaking still can understand language and can read. So that was my hope in doing this, you know, to kind of get people to understand that and practice it. Thank you for sharing that. Any other questions? You have a question?
I do. So What about also the puzzles that are online? Do you think they would have the same kind of benefit as holding an actual physical puzzle? Like I have a puzzle on my phone, app on my phone where I do that for on the train rides. But I wonder with those with dementia, is the technology just too much, or is it something worth trying? What are your thoughts?
Okay, that's a really good question. And we'll talk about it now and again tomorrow. You know, it's like anything, it's individual. So you could have, again, I spoke earlier, things are changing. People use computers. Okay, so just because, you know, it took me how long to get my mom to do Zoom and all that, okay? You know, like she doesn't like computers, okay? But that doesn't mean it will always be that way. And, you know, I know for myself, I have been able to use some things that are on a computer with clients because they use a computer. But if they have not, that gets really tricky. And it depends on what you're doing too. You know, even when you're doing something in person, you know, depending on a person's perception, remember we talked about that, if there's too much going on, that's not going to work. So it really depends on what you're actually doing. But if you think about maybe they do have simple puzzles where you can click and drag and put things together. If a person knows how to do that and you want to kind of keep working on that and they can successfully do it, definitely. The one thing that I think is important for people as they progress is that they have to keep doing things with their hands though. And those are things, but there's a lot of different movements, you know, with your hands, and especially for people to remain independent. I mean, even just, you know, opening a lid and, you know, like they have to be able to do certain things. And sometimes, unfortunately, that kind of goes away if people are in that setting and they're not doing things for themselves. So it's pretty individual, I think. But we'll talk about that. You know, there's a lot of things like the Words with Friends, and you know, there's a lot of really cool apps out there. There's painting apps, and I mean, sure. Hey, if it works and the person can do it, why not? You know, my brother's a physical therapist, and I tell him all the time, I said, I worry about the future. Like if this was my phone, we're like this all the time. And he's like, that's business for me because we're constantly, unless you know, are using a stand or whatever, it really is bad for your neck. So you have to be careful. Any other questions? I'm so impressed with myself that because, you know, I practice this because I have a tendency, I like to talk, and it's like, I don't want to, you know, have like 20 slides left. And then I have Jasmine going like this. So you know, and tomorrow it will just be so much more, will be more doing, and we can really have a lot more discussion. But I really felt like it was important to talk about a lot of this stuff because, you know, I learned a lot. I learned as I went, and as I was researching this, it kind of just came together.
The population where I was working, it was a nursing home, but it was a pediatric nursing home. So we saw a lot of AIDS-related dementia. So they're young, much younger than what you're talking about, but they were diagnosed with AIDS-related dementia and were going through the same symptoms that you're seeing in the 90-year-olds. So we found puzzles also very helpful as well, for sequencing, for matching, just a lot, just really helpful.
Yeah, it's great. And again, you know, just trying to find, you know, I'll give you a bunch of resources tomorrow, but I happen to like this company that I showed you, MindStart. They range in pieces from like 12 to, I don't know, I don't really know in particular this company, but Puzzle Warehouse, you know, I'll give you that resource tomorrow. You can go on Puzzle Warehouse and you'll see these, you'll see like a couple of other companies, but you can pretty much get a wide range of pieces. So, you know, if you have, like I have a small puzzle like this, but it's 63 pieces, which is, you know, it's kind of a lot if you think about it, but it's a, you know, a map of the United States. So yeah, and we'll talk a lot more about jigsaw puzzles. I just kind of separated it this way because it just made sense.
Can you talk a little bit more? I'm intrigued that you are, you know, the president of your own company, and how you do you maybe just explain a little bit more. Do you, you talked about specific clients that you worked with, and then do you do some like short-term, like consulting with the family on how to work with their loved one with Alzheimer's or dementia?
I'm glad you brought that question up, and I'll tell you why. Because when the way I do what I do, I will be honest with you, most of the families that I work with, obviously I can have a conversation with the person and know their, their likes and dislikes. But when it comes to, really educating and even leisure education, it's a little different because you're really doing that with the family member, or, I do a lot of training with the paid caregivers, about best approach, even just the dementia education. But then what I'm doing in a sense is I'm the recreation therapist. I'm the CTRS. I do my own assessment. I have a activity assessment intake, and then I have a regular intake because I am a clinician. I don't have a chart that I can open. I have to make my own because, that's just what I do. I work in people's homes. So it's a mixture, and that's how I decided that I wanted to stay true to my profession. I was not going to, I want to make money, of course, but I had to stay true to my profession. So I had to find a way for people to really understand what I do and see the results, which, if you know what you're doing, it's really not hard. And to educate them on what they can do when I'm not there, because I can't move in and be with everybody. I mean, some people would like me to do that, but I just cannot do that. So, I kind of mix it. It's a lot of dementia care. It's a lot of education to families, and it's doing the assessment. I found a way to do my assessment that's fun. I'm certainly not sitting there with a clipboard with the person. That's not going to work. I kind of can zero in, like, I know this will work. And I'll be honest with you, I do a lot of my, the exercise, the Chair One Fitness. I do that a lot with people for a session, and you can assess a lot from that. And then we'll move into doing something else. So, based on what I see, I then help people set up a plan. I set up a care plan, and then we have goals. A lot of families really aren't very interested in all of that. It's not like they want to see that. They just really want to see, they're usually happy after the first thing, because one of the most popular things people will say is, I just never realized that they could do that. And I've done my job right there. So it's been interesting. I've been doing this since 2017. So, and like I said, I had to find a way this year. Everything changed for me. We moved here. I had a really big actually, I have more clients in New York right now than I do here. So I have a really big connection to a lot of people in New York. And I'm excited that we'll actually see a lot of them in person. We're visiting New York in June for a couple of weeks. So that's exciting. But I think it's like anything else. If you really want to do something, I've always been that way. And the place where I worked, see, I'm talking a lot now. We're going to use this time up. So where I worked was actually where we ultimately placed my father, because he was one of those people who kind of declined very quickly, and my mom couldn't really take care of him. And, my mother said, if we're going to place him, I want him to be where you work, which was great at first. And I'll be honest with you, the only reason I left where I was working, because I loved what I did there. I loved where I worked. I worked for a great administrator. I've compared everybody else that I ever worked for to him. He just let you do what you needed to do. He was all about the residents, the clients. And I left there because I couldn't be the daughter and the employee anymore. And I couldn't advocate for my father the way I needed to without having to worry about who I was offending. And so I left there, and I was able to at the time. And then I decided to, create something for myself. Took many years of development. And then in 2017, I kind of renamed the company I had, and there we are.
Nice. So is it like out of pocket pay, or do you get reimbursed?
Yes. I do not get reimbursed. Let me think. There was several years back before I started this company, I actually was doing some like contract work with a company. She was based in Michigan. I think she worked off like the traumatic brain injury waiver. So I actually had a client in Brooklyn, but I worked for her. It all worked out. But yeah, it is private pay. And like I said earlier, I wanted to find a way that I could really, you know, charge enough that I could feel like I'm getting what I need to be paid, but I want to give people quality. I want to educate them. That's really why I did this, you know, because there isn't really rec therapy in the home. There's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of people, you know, who are doing different things and, you know, charging people a lot of money. And, you know, some of them are good at one thing, but rec therapy is not just art. You know, rec therapy is a lot of different things. And so that makes me feel sad when I hear stories. You know, they show up with all these art supplies, and even in that, how do you know what a person can do? You know, there's so many things that go into just sitting down and painting a picture, even painting, right? Dipping the brush. So that's what I do.
Right. In the assessment, you know how to reach each individual, and that's going to be different. I'm sure the families do appreciate that you're looking at them as an individual and not someone just, I'm here to do music and that's it, or art or horticulture, whatever, but what are their interests? And then you tie your programming into that. So I can see where they are like, yeah, it's a buy-in. It's absolutely.
Right.
Nice.
Right. Thanks. Any other questions? So we have 8 minutes left. So tomorrow we can use those 8 minutes. No, just
But it's a reminder that tomorrow, this part 2 of the session. So for attending the live session is wonderful, and it's great because you can ask Melissa questions live. If you can also, if you're unable to, maybe because of work, and I know in TR we have evening schedules and alternate schedules, especially with COVID, you can watch the session after it's uploaded, after we record it and upload it. So that is an option. We're trying to be flexible for those who have various work schedules, but you must somehow attend both sessions in order to get the full credit for the session. So I just want to remind everybody of that.
Okay. Great. Well, hopefully I see you tomorrow. And thank you, Jasmine.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. This was a great session. I won't be the moderator next tomorrow, but
I know that's why I'm thanking you, because I saw that. So
but
thank
I will
you.
Come to attend so I could just participate.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you,
everybody.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed.
Thank you, everybody. And again, if you didn't put your name or a comment in chat, now would be a great time to do so, because I am going to save the chat before I stop recording. That is part of attendance, to assure that people were also here. So thank you for doing that. If you haven't done so already, please do it before you log off. Melissa, thank you so much for your time, for putting this wonderful PowerPoint together. And I can't wait to see what tomorrow brings.
Great. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great night.
Okay.
I can just leave now, right?
Yes, I'll stay. I'm going to stay and I'll stop everything. Yes.
Oh, okay. Can I ask you one question though? What you said about the comments, how do you do that if you're watching a pre-recorded? Where, you know?
Well, for those who were if they're pre-recorded, that's a good one. You know what,
Yeah.
Shelly? I don't know. I was just going to say, with the live, I'm printing it out and I'm going to give it to,
right.
I do not know. That's a very good question.
I think someone asked that question at a session yesterday, maybe, and they just said, well, I guess honor system, but you'll just have to finish, if you watch it pre-recorded or after it's recorded, or ones that are pre-recorded, you just still finish the attestment form and send it in, and that will count. So I guess, so I'm going to do that.
Yeah, I think I mean, not that